One of the bands I enjoy, I was listening to them this morning. It's a band called Disturbed, probably a little too loud for Arthur, though they did do a really mellow version of Simon and Garfunkel's Sound of Silence. I don't know if you remember, anybody remembers that bald guy who was the metal singer who did Sound of Silence a few years back? Anyway, they wrote a new song, a new album called, anyway, the song is called Divisive. And it goes, some of the lyrics go like this. I'm not going to sing it, but you won't listen to me. You won't speak to me. You've become another monster living in your own reality. Don't bitch to me. Don't stop judging me. You're just another monster living in your own reality. And that's the fear I have with this division is people are living in their own realities. Their echo chambers, they're not connecting. And I'm blessed where I get to connect to everybody, but I see people not connecting the way they should or can. So look, at the end of the day, do I want to see people with pickup trucks with Trump banners, yelling with bullhorns, driving through neighborhoods and screaming at people? I don't want to see that. I want to see that. I get it. But do I want to see woke people on social media hectoring, badgering, shaming? Or do I want to see anyone being a troll? What's in the West Wing? They said, don't feed the trolls. You know, that was, if you ever watched that show. And don't be a troll, you know. So those are some of the challenges, right? So where do, you know, so we're coming off an election, and I think all of this leads to what has been termed outrage addiction. It's like there's other addictions, but there's addiction to outrage. And we see it sadly on Long Island. What are the values underneath the outrage? They're not great ones. Narcissism, it's about me, my ideas all the time, 24/7. Power and control. People want power over people, political power, this kind of power. I'm going to tell you what to do, blah, blah, blah. And there's greed involved because there's people paying people to control things too. So we can't miss that. There's that isolation, that echo chamber affirmation that you get, you know, tied to people. And I don't know, again, with my heavy metal, sometimes I get into horror imagery, but there's the four horses of the apocalypse, right? What are two of them? There's the white and the red one, right? So it's the pestilence and then the war. And it just feels like that. It just feels like a degrading of humanity. You know, I came here at 17 years old, and the affirmation of really everyone, you know, everyone has good in them in some degree. Everyone has inherent worth. We gotta get back to that, my God. We got to get back to that. And so I was thinking about that while I was trying to figure out this election results and where Long Island is in relationship to this, because Long Island had a red wave and the rest of the country didn't. And you know, where are our folks versus everybody else? I still think a lot of independent people spoke that they don't want the extremes anymore. You know, again, as I said before, 11 of the last 15 elections federally were decided with less than 5% swing either way. People are consistently voting to try to be, you know, have some kind of middle. And middle folks need to step out, but not necessarily, I'll get into what we need to do in a minute. But I guess I wanted to get into something I just did, but I'll say this. In my lifetime, when I first came here in the 80s, the world was, if you were a real American, or you were black, Hispanic, gay, long hair, Democrat. That was the politics at the time. And people made you feel that way. It was awful. It was awful. Like you hated it. I mean, I remember hating it, feeling this weird. I was this weird kid. Came here, connected to wonderful people who were tied to movements in society that were really bringing up rights to make people feel connected to society, have inherent, again, bring the inherent worth into the public sphere. I loved it. But somewhere along the line, someone took that football and then said, well, you only have worth if you're this type of person or that type of person. And if you don't have these certain values or say things a certain way or act a certain way, then you don't. Then you're really beneath contempt. You're the enemy. So in my lifetime, that's completely turned around. And it's like really kind of crazy. I'm like, wow, this is so weird that the folks on the outside are like white working class people. So anyway, that's kind of, some commentary. But I wanted to get into, forget about the politics for a second. I wanted to get into this experiment. I just got so tired of the division. I said, you know what? I deal with awesome people all day long in my work. So I started doing this Main Street News talk show where I said, I'll just interview people I like and listen to them for 30 minutes. And I've had 450 people on right now. I've had wonderful people here from Ethical. I've had Arthur Dobrin has joined us. Sue Pfeiffer has joined us. I know Dave Sprinson has joined us on the show. Sylvia Silberger also. And what I could say, I've had, it doesn't matter, Republicans, Democrats, food pantry directors, mayors, county execs, state senators, congresspeople, or just people that run businesses and chambers of commerce. And what's the common thread for all these different people, Black, white, Hispanic, South Asian, all different backgrounds? Of course, they're smart, dedicated, work hard, and have leadership qualities. We get that. That can come in a lot of different leaders. But folks have empathy. They work in the public interest, and they give back. They listen to others. And they see something bigger than just themselves. And if I could tell you, you guys are, the four of you that from Ethical are 1% of that 450 people I've interviewed. But there are people like you that have these values and do wonderful things in society. And that brings me massive faith. And through the pandemic, what have I also learned? That people pulled together through the pandemic. On Main Streets, Shop Local campaigns went from 12 communities to over 30. Folks fought hard to make the roads safe. We did 15 walking audits. Senator Schumer came in and he's working on doing improvements on 5 major state roadways where people are literally dying through communities. There's been more affordable housing planned and approved, though we need more than ever. The Environmental Bond Act was passed, and other people supported their parks, came out, walked, biked. More local charity, really local charity. Now, the corporations, some of them didn't do what they needed to do, but people pulled together to help each other through the pandemic, and that's heartening. And again, these aren't the stories you don't typically hear. So, again, and I can get into much more depth on what is happening specifically on Main Streets. We have our Smart Growth Summit December 2nd at the Crest Hollow Country Club. I know some of you guys will be there. We certainly welcome others, and I'll have some comp tickets for Ethical members. But I guess I wanted to, you don't want to just raise a problem. I wanted to put out a solution on how to get through some of the divisiveness that's out there, because it's really hurting us. First, I just want to say, A, suspend your disbelief about who the enemy is. Just suspend your disbelief for a minute. I'm going to name a bunch of issues, and I'm going to say something at the end, and you guys won't be shocked, but maybe folks out there listening might be. People who work to solve homelessness, people who work for affordable housing, people who work to bring bus service, people who fight for walkable streets, people who fight for immigration services, people who are anti-war, people who are giving job opportunities every day, people who do charity, people who are fight authoritarianism, people who fight for free speech, and people who fight for human services, children and families. They're not just liberals. I gave examples right there of leaders who are local Republicans and independents. I don't even know what their politics are, but I know that maybe they're not liberal. So the beautiful part is there can be allies across political lines on the most progressive stuff we need to do. Suspend your disbelief, number one. Number two, unplug yourself from divisive streams of content and the outrage addiction. Social media, national media all night coming at you. Some emails you get, texts you get, you didn't even sign up for. And then sometimes even people. And you can't completely unplug from family members and this and that, but you could lower the volume, you can check yourself out of the constant conflict. C, reconnect with the real people in your circle. I think of, get out of that echo chamber. I think of things you guys used to do here that I just thought was awesome. The spice, the splendid opportunities in fun environments. Congenial. I always loved that, right? So you guys would have like, I don't know, we did beer tasting, I remember with Arthur. I know you do all kinds of food. You're at different people's houses. And I don't know what the politics are between people. Maybe you don't get into the politics, but you sit and have a wonderful meal, with, or learn about something. Whatever way you can do that now, whether it be drinks, whether it be sports, whether it be music, whether it be, this summer, Long Island's downtowns had record number of events and a record number of amount of turnout. So I think over a 4-month period, we did 16 press conferences tied to these events, and it was, I think in 70 communities, there were over 300 events, and they all report back. Really, really best attendance they have had. People didn't get on planes and trains, they stayed local. And the good news with that is hopefully people are connecting to each other in a way that's face-to-face, there's humanity to it, and there's an uplift to the community. So that's, just reconnect with real people. Try to also reconnect. I went to a professional conference talking about energy policy, and everybody had ideas for how much a lot of green initiatives are going to cost. And I'm like, talk to someone who makes you egg sandwich, in the morning, what their life is like. Try to connect to somebody outside the bubble, outside the laptop, and what their life is like and what their experience is like. We deal with this with a lot of food pantries, a lot of volunteers. Lives are a lot different. What people can afford right now is a challenge. So I think trying to connect, trying to get sober about that, and be, is important. Join collaborative efforts. There's a lot of wonderful organizations on the island that are working on, mental health, human services, drug addiction, employment assistance, housing. We're working on a whole bunch of areas. We definitely need help. We have a lobby coalition that goes up to Albany each year. We have our Main Street Alliance, as I mentioned, our summit. We do food deliveries now every other Friday, but we need to do them every Friday. So the pantries are definitely a need. There's so many things, collaborative efforts you can do with folks on the island right now in this moment that can cut across a lot of the, toxicity. So I'd say turn the outrage into something productive. In any way you can, in whatever part of your life can do that. And if you can't find it in you, because sometimes you're so passionate. And I was an outrage guy because I had the former governor who's pushing a casino on Long Island, right? And I'm not happy about that. So I'm in a meeting with the former governor, and I'm getting like blood's rushing out of my neck. I'm like so frustrated. And they're like, oh, well, he's very lively. I'm like, yeah, a little lively. I was a little over the top, but I could have said some things a little better. But at the very least, turn into productive. At least do no harm. Don't take the bait people put out for you. There's people that are really talented at getting you to react. That's the thing. Don't feed the division. Don't feed the trolls. Again, back to that West Wing analogy, I think it was C.J. Craig was the press secretary, and Josh Lyman, I think, was a policy guy or whatever, and he took the bait. And he's like, he talked to the trolls, and don't feed the trolls. So, again, I look at outrage addiction. If you look at other addictions, it's abusive. I've dealt with some abusiveness in my family, and, when I was young, and, you can fight. You can fight. You could do the flight, you could check out. But there are situations where you have to do that. But I think from a position of strength, you can take control and change the dynamics of the situation. And I think that is where we have an opportunity. And I feel now coming together through these years of the pandemic forced a lot of us locally together While it separated some of us, it forced us locally together to kind of help each other through a lot of tough stuff. We don't have enough time today to get into pandemic stories of how tough some of this stuff is. And we could almost renew our vows of progressive values with a different tone and style of working. And when I say renew our values, our vows, I mean our values don't change. People need to be fed, homeless need to be housed. The rights for women in any group need to be protected. Immigrant families need opportunities. Working people need a boost. We need to revitalize our downtowns, make our roads safer, make sure there's opportunities for housing for young, old, and appropriate services across the board. Progressive values and goals need not change. And I tip of the hat to David Sprinson for getting these dialogues going each month, and you guys are doing that across how do we change our tone. We don't need to change our values, but we got to change our tone, how we communicate, how we dialogue, how we function, how we view each other, how we coexist together needs to change. And I think, again, it's in front of us. And I guess the last thing I'll say is back to that Disturbed line in a new song. Again, don't be a monster living in your own reality. We don't have to do that. And our communities across Long Island, I think most of them, they don't want to do that. And so I'll stop there and say thank you for listening. Again, for more, if you came here, James, more with wanting more of a Main Street update, certainly again, December 2nd, we have our Smart Growth Summit. So I'll get you a ticket so you can come to that and hear about all the different downtowns that are doing different things. Thank you. Yes, oh yeah.